As we mentioned yesterday, both photosynthesis and cellular respiration are chemical reactions which take the reactants and rearrange the atoms to make different substances. And photosynthesis uses energy from light to rearrange the atoms of carbon dioxide and water and change them into larger molecule, glucose, and oxygen. So photosynthesis is taking energy from light and then storing that energy in another form. It's stored in the bonds of this glucose molecule. The bonds that hold these 6 carbons and 12 hydrogens and 6 oxygens together, they have energy stored in them, and that energy can later be used. So photosynthesis basically captures light energy and changes it into another form. And did we talk yesterday about light and why it really doesn't belong here?
I remember.
Yeah, so really, truly a chemical reaction only includes matter, molecules. And light is not a molecule, it's an energy source. So often you might see the equation for photosynthesis written, but with light sort of over the arrow, which shows that it's necessary. The energy from light is necessary, but it's not technically a part of the actual chemical reaction. Okay? But for our purposes, this is good enough. So we also mentioned that when we're writing chemical reactions, the reactants are what's on the left side of the yield arrow, and the products are on the right side. So ultimately the goal of photosynthesis is to produce glucose. Then we move on now to cellular respiration is the technical term for this. But we're just calling it respiration here. And if you know the formula and the equation for photosynthesis, then knowing the equation for respiration is relatively easy because they're pretty close to exact opposites with one change. So if that's the case, what do you think the reactants are in respiration? Right, Jessica?
Glucose and oxygen.
Yeah, it starts with glucose and oxygen. C6H12O6 and O2. And it produces 3 things. One of them is different than it was in photosynthesis. Joey, what do you think they are? No? No? Mom? Yes? Yes. And then the difference. Is this light? It's not light. If this type of energy released were light, we would be glowing constantly because our cells are producing light energy. They don't, unfortunately. That would be cool. But they don't. So this is another form of energy. You guys probably don't know. You want to guess what it is?
Yeah.
Dean?
Kinetic energy?
No. It's a form of chemical energy. You're not going to notice that. But it's a molecule that stores energy in its bonds called adenosine triphosphate. We abbreviate it ATP. And it produces water and carbon dioxide as waste products. So this molecule, ATP, is hugely important to living things. Basically, all of our cells must have a constant supply of ATP. It's what they run on. It's a type of energy they can actually use to stay alive. It's the type of energy that we use to move and for our cells to reproduce. And for anything in the cell that requires energy, it uses ATP. You could kind of think about it this way. So does the winds have energy? Does wind have energy? No?
You can use it to produce energy, but
So what does that mean about the wind?
it's reactive.
It has energy. Moving, anything moving has energy, the energy of movement. So the wind has energy. And what do we use to harness that energy? Aiden? Yeah, a wind turbine, which takes that moving wind energy, uses a turbine, and transforms that energy into what? Grace? Electricity. Because electricity is what we really use. I can't hold my phone up to the wind and charge it, although that'd be really cool, right? Even though the wind has energy, that doesn't work. I need to transform that energy from the wind into electricity, and that's what my phone uses. That's what my toaster oven uses. That's what my television and all those other things that we use, they all use electricity. That's sort of the currency of all of our consumer electronics is electricity. Well, in cells, it's the same sort of thing. In cells, all cellular activity runs on one type of energy, ATP. Okay? So any other molecule which has energy needs to be converted into ATP to actually be usable for the cell. So glucose has energy in it. Okay, when I just ate my clementine, it's being digested. The sugars in there are being digested. They'll go into my bloodstream. That will be delivered to my cell, and that glucose has energy in it. But my cells can't directly use that energy to do anything. They need to take that glucose, run it through this process of cellular respiration to produce ATP, and that's what my cells actually use. ATP is what our cells use for all of their cellular activity. So it's like the electricity of the cell. So that's why respiration is important. Again, the reactants are here on the left side of the arrow. The products are on the right side of the arrow. And so the ultimate goal of respiration is to produce energy in the form of ATP, usable energy. And so, obviously, photosynthesis and respiration are closely tied together. Okay, that the products of photosynthesis are the reactants of respiration. And the products of respiration are the reactants of photosynthesis. And so we have this cycle. It's part of what we call the carbon-oxygen cycle. In that plants use carbon dioxide and water along with energy from the sun for the process of photosynthesis, which releases oxygen and glucose. Animals get their energy by eating that glucose in one way or another. And they also take in oxygen that was released in photosynthesis. They release, after the process of respiration, carbon dioxide and water, which is used by plants in photosynthesis. So respiration and photosynthesis form this cycle. So they're linked together. Instead of just a review and summary. So don't look back at the previous page for a minute. Who could give me the entire reaction for photosynthesis without looking back? Grady?
Light, water, and carbon dioxide.
Light plus water plus carbon dioxide yields, that's what we say for the arrow. It's on the other side, Jake.
C6H12 and O6.
Yes.
Glucose.
That's glucose.
That was glucose. CO, no. O2.
Correct. So it produces glucose, C6H12O6, and oxygen. That's photosynthesis. Question, Grace?
Yeah, do we have to remember the C6
Yeah, you should know both, the word and the chemical symbol.
Does it have to be in the correct order?
Yep.
Or-
Well, you mean on this side?
Yeah.
No, you could have, here we could write CO2 plus water plus light, or what light plus water plus CO2. The order on each side is not important, as long as you have the right things on the left and the correct things on the right. So, in photosynthesis, energy from sunlight is changed, converted, transferred into chemical bond energy within a glucose molecule. What organelle does that happen in? Alex?
Chloroplast.
In the chloroplast of plant cells and a couple of others. All right, respiration. Grace, can you give me the formula?
Glucose, which is C6H12O6.
Yep,
And then O2,
yep. Produces, yields,
CO2.
yes.
ATP.
Yes.
And
If you look at photosynthesis, it'll probably tell you.
H2O.
Yes. ATP, carbon dioxide, and water. What organelle does cellular respiration take place in? Think about what is it producing?
Mighty mitochondria.
The mighty mitochondria, yes. Yeah, that happens in the mitochondria. When we say the mitochondria releases energy for the cell, well, that's because respiration happens in the mitochondria. Mitochondria take in glucose and oxygen, and they produce ATP, energy for the cell to run on. And respiration is the main source of energy for all living things. There are other ways of getting energy out of materials like fermentation, but for our purposes, we're going to say it happens through respiration. So in summary, photosynthesis. What does it require, Priscilla?
Sunlight and water and carbon dioxide.
Yeah, sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. That's what's required, needed. Those are the raw materials, the ingredients needed for photosynthesis. Olivia, how about respiration? What does it require?
H2O.
No, what are the raw materials? What's needed to sort of, as a reactant in respiration? Sort of the fuel for it.
CO2.
No? Stephanie?
Glucose and O2.
Yeah, the things we need are to go into respiration are the things on the left side, so glucose and oxygen. What about the end products, the things that are produced in photosynthesis? Carter?
Glucose and oxygen.
Produces glucose and oxygen. How about respiration? Brian?
ATP,
ATP,
water and carbon dioxide.
water, and carbon dioxide. Those are the products of respiration. The purpose. So what would you say the main purpose of photosynthesis? Emma? What's that? Yeah, to produce glucose, to make food for the plant. The main purpose of respiration. Grady?
To produce energy.
Produce energy. I don't like saying make energy, but really you should say release energy. Which organelle for photosynthesis? Katie? Happens in the chloroplast. About respiration? Francesca?
Mitochondria.
Mitochondria. What types of organisms does photosynthesis happen in? Carter?
All plants.
Plants and a couple other things, but we'll just say plants for right now. And respiration. Aiden? Good. So this is the fourth time I've done this year, and that's the first time we got the correct answer for this question. Why? What do people want to say here? So far, everyone's given me the same answer, besides just now. What? No, what they say is animals. Why did you say living things, Aiden?
Well, because
It is right, but I thought you had maybe some logic behind that. Hey, Mom?
Because like bacteria, organisms,
Yeah,
animals.
Okay. Well, maybe I. What about plants?
Yeah.
So, does respiration happen in plants?
Yeah.
What? I didn't say they were animals. Does respiration happen in plants?
Yes.
Why? You're right. Why does respiration happen in plants? Right, Jessica?
Because it's a living thing, and it happens in like every.
Yeah, but why does it have to happen in plants though? Stephanie? True. And plant cells, like all other cells, what do they run on? What type of energy? ATP. Plant cells need ATP. Hold on a second. We got a minute here. So, plant cells need ATP. What do they make in photosynthesis? Glucose. Then they need to take that glucose, run it through cellular respiration to actually get the ATP. So even though they make food for themselves in form of glucose, they need to then transform that energy into ATP, which their cells can actually run. So plants go through both. This is a question, will be on your quiz, and many of you will get it wrong. You'll say, which one happens in plants? Photosynthesis, respiration, or both? What's the answer? What are you going to write? I hope so. Many of you will just write photosynthesis. All right. I guess we'll have to listen to our songs tomorrow.